Well, Joe Biden's administration has been steadfast in its support of Israel's right to defend itself, but in a conflict that will clearly require a compromise to achieve a peaceful resolution. What influence will the US have on negotiations? Joining me now is Laura Blumenfeld, former senior policy advisor in the US State Department's Israel-Palestinian negotiating team. Good evening. Thank you very much for being with us. Just first of all, your thoughts as it's confirmed that the next phase, the ground phase of this operation has begun.
Well, I think Israel is entering a phase of, bomb now, talk later, and try to get some leverage, especially to release those hostages. Best case scenario is they go in pretty intensively now and that they can pause for humanitarian relief to the Palestinian civilians and maybe free some more of those hostages where they'd reached a stalemate. From the American point of view, I think what's fascinating is militarily they're going small. They're trying to minimize the conflict, prevent a regional escalation. But from a moral and diplomatic point of view, they're going big, they're going all out, and they're linking this to a sort of a greater goal for the United States, which is to prove that America and the West are not a divided and dying force in the world, linking it to the fight, of autocracy versus democracy, and linking it to Ukraine, saying that this is really a fight about free people living without the threat of tyranny or terrorism.
Yeah, so you think it's pretty clear that the US has given the green light to whatever operation we're about to see?
Well, I mean, they're saying go in, but not with an open fist, but a pointed finger. I mean, be strategic about it. In some ways, Israelis have succeeded in the past by targeting, right, their assailants, and that's what they're better at than the broad sweep where civilian casualties are inevitable and world opinion very quickly turns against them for understandable reasons. They're suffering, and that's hard to take. This isn't a world war yet, but in a sense, the world is at war, at least psychologically, more than I've ever seen because of the graphic, raw nature of the images, both through regular media and social media.
Yeah, let's just talk about the Palestinian issue. The US has voted against a humanitarian ceasefire at the UN General Assembly. What sort of message do you think that sends to the Palestinian people?
I mean, for the U.S., I would say their Gaza policy, it's just an increasingly complicated car park into a narrowing slot here. They're saying, go forward, go back, don't hit Iran. I think diplomatically, Secretary Blinken's been pretty clear on the Palestinian issue that we can't go back to the status quo. And that includes a resolution and creating a two-state solution for the Palestinians. I think they're holding out hope that they can pivot, that the tougher the conflict in the Middle East sometimes leads to the greater opportunity for peace. I know that's hard to believe, but we saw that following the Yom Kippur War. And then a peace treaty with Egypt. Remember that the president of the United States so far has been the boots on the ground, and that's pretty much owning the conflict. They are viewing this in some ways as a bloody referendum of the Abraham Accords, which is where we were at before October 7th, where the administration was saying we're going for regional integration and stability and economic prosperity for all. What's happening now is the Arab states are the swing voters as we're trying to, feel our way toward a positive resolution. Which way will they go? And yes, as the United States backs Israel, they do risk alienating those swing voters. Saudi Arabia has come out strongly, and Jordan. So they're mindful of that. And
Does the United States share some of the blame here for not really putting much effort into the Palestinian issue, the talks with the Palestinians over, the last sort of decade, really, just more than a decade?
Well, I think what the administration was doing is a reasonable approach. They were saying embrace the doable. If there isn't an opportunity for tangible progress on the Israeli-Palestinian front, let's look toward other regional partners like Saudi Arabia and include the Palestinian issue while we negotiate those talks. Having participated as a policy advisor under President Obama, I can tell you that we negotiated tangible issues. We were talking about borders and refugees and Jerusalem and security I think one thing that this administration will probably have to take into account is not only tangible issues, but intangibles, which are so important, especially with this conflict. The issues of narrative. What is your story? Who am I? What does it mean for me to be a Palestinian or an Israeli? And frankly, the intangible of trauma, because I don't think that we've seen the kind of personal anguish and trauma with the hostages tossed in, and who knows what's coming forward. I think we're going to have to address those intangibles as well.
And just finally, 30 seconds left, I'm afraid. Can you see any way that we get back on track at some stage to the kind of peace process that, you know, Obama was talking about and so many other people have been talking about in the past?
I do think so, because Biden, President Biden has really passed the kind of crash test of credibility in the region. He showed, I call it the 3 C's, right? He showed clarity in his message. He showed commitment. The presidents in the past who've succeeded with Middle East peace, take Jimmy Carter or President Clinton, not only commitment, but passionate commitment and context. He sees this clash within the larger context of the world, and that can work toward a better solution.
Okay, Laura Blumenfeld, thank you very much indeed for coming on the program. Appreciate your time.